Okay. I'm calling this one. What am I calling this one? I'm calling this one Boring Life Now, Interesting Life Later. No, I'm not calling it that. I'm calling it Boring Life, Interesting Person. That's what I'm calling it. So, it's been a while. It's a bit cold out here on this winter morning, but I'm bundled up and I've got some coffee here. And for those of you who need more visual stimuli than that, I do have some cigarettes. But you have to stick around until around the 5-minute mark to watch me smoke this. Boring life, interesting person. You know, being bored. I haven't been bored in a really long time, actually, to be candid with everybody. Usually, I am entertaining myself in one of many ways that man is able to entertain himself in modern times. A lot of Clash Royale. A lot of Clash Royale. But my point is that I'm never bored anymore. And my point is that maybe that's not such a good thing. Indeed. I try to escape the boredom in any way I can. Usually with some kind of mind-altering substance, such as a drug of sorts, you know, or some kind of like TV, YouTube videos, escapism. That's about it, really. Yeah, I don't do anything anymore, and that's why I decided to make this video. Because I've been thinking about it, as I do. I've been thinking about it, and you know, the thing about, let's say, trading off the less productive activities. So let's say, hypothetically, you decide to get off all drugs, and we literally talk about this every video. But let's say you decide to get off drugs, you get off the TikTok, you get off the YouTube, okay? You give up everything that you were doing to escape boredom, and now you have nothing. And now you have nothing. And so, you have this nothing, and you can do a lot with it. And that's what I mean when I say trading less productive habits for more productive ones. Why doesn't everybody do that? Why wouldn't every person do that? It's because the more productive habits, activities are boring. They are boring. They might be the most boring thing that you've ever done. And that's the true reason. The true reason why nobody does more than they could with their time, because it's more fun to watch YouTube videos than it is to practice some kind of skill or something like that. It's way more fun to smoke weed and laugh with your friends while playing a video game than it is to hunker down and practice your coding or whatever it is that you fucking do. I don't know what you do, but whatever it is that you do, I guarantee you it's a hell of a lot less interesting than whatever I can find on Instagram Reels right now. And I don't really know where I'm going with this one, because I don't really have a solution to that. I'm a victim of that myself, a victim, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? I am a slave to my carnal desires on some level, and that the strongest of those desires is to not be bored. And so I do everything in my power not to be bored. And the natural formation of your life when you do that is you will probably do drugs, and you will probably play video games and watch YouTube until you die. Until you die, okay? You're gonna do that until you die. I'm gonna do that until I die. Unless I decide to take that cold plunge into the pool, into that ice bath, and trade in my less productive habits for some more productive ones that happen to be a lot more boring, a lot less interesting. And it is of my opinion, this is where the title of the video comes from. It is of my humble little opinion that an interesting life, quote unquote, a life where you're never bored, a life where you're constantly entertaining yourself, even going out to bars, partying, doing drugs, watching cool videos, all of that fun rocker lifestyle stuff. The more interested you are in your life, right? The less interesting you become as a person, that is to say, if you spend your life doing quote unquote interesting things, not necessarily interesting in the way that going to Africa or something would be interesting, but interesting in the way that you are distracted. You are distracted from the monotony of life, or the absolute lack of things you have. I don't know. I don't really know what we're distracting ourselves from. Probably work. Probably boredom. What I'm saying is that the more things you do that distract you, that are entertaining and keep you busy in the moment, that will lead you to be a very uninteresting person in the long run. Now, usually, I don't know if you can hear me from over there, but usually, I don't care if I'm interesting or not. I don't care. I don't give a rat's head if I'm interesting to people or not. But then I thought about it. I didn't even really think about it. I just visualized it. I thought of what I might look like in 10 years if I keep doing what I'm doing, which is nothing, ultimately. And I thought, damn, that would be a sad sight. I would have nothing. I would have nothing except Clash Royale knowledge. Clash Royale knowledge and a lot of brain cells that have been disintegrated by cannabis use. I already have that, actually. It's kind of my point. I already have Clash Royale knowledge and more burnt brain cells than any man could ever want. In a way, what I'm saying is that old saying where it's like, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got, or something like that. But and that is uninteresting. Ultimately, that is uninteresting. And so, the picture I'm trying to paint is that while you're entertaining yourself with TikTok or whatever escapism, Fortnite, I don't care, whatever it is, in 10 years, if you're still playing that fucking game, it's gonna come back to bite you, because nobody's gonna care. Not even you. Maybe especially you. You're not gonna care. And so, in 10 years, if that's all you've been doing for 10 years, you're not gonna be a very interesting person. And that means more than just being like a cool guy at the party. Whoa, look at this guy. He went to Africa. He went to Europe. He works for NASA. I don't fucking care. What I'm saying is that you are going to be nothing. You will be nothing. You will be nobody. You will be fucking nobody. Okay? You'll be nobody if you continue down the path of escapism. Now, the problem is, you got to do boring stuff now so that in 10 years, actually, let me be more accurate. You have to do boring stuff for 10 years. You got to do boring shit for 10 years. And then in 10 years, you'll be doing the boring shit you've always done. And you'll realize that you've become somebody worth knowing. That's what it means to be interesting. You will become someone worth knowing. And that's one path, and the other path is keep doing the shit that keeps you from being bored, and you run the risk of, in 10 years, you'll be scrolling TikTok and you'll think to yourself, this isn't interesting to me anymore. That's the first thing, is that it gets old. And then the other thing is that you'll have nothing. You'll have nothing and you'll be nobody. And you should probably do anything you can to let that not happen, is what I think. So, in short, interesting life, boring person. Boring life, interesting person. And you have to decide if that's worth it, if that's something that you care about. I think it's something that you should care about. But, and I'm going to keep going here. That's basically the video, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going because I feel like it. I'm going to keep going because I feel like it. It's been a while since I made a video, so I'm in a spizzing mood. I'm in the mood to spizz. But the other question is, okay, you make that decision. You say to yourself, okay, I don't want to be the guy who goes on TikTok every day in 10 years. Then the challenge becomes giving up the life you've grown accustomed to. Your whole personality, your brain, your body, your spirit even has been molded for this lifestyle at this point. So it can be a very uncomfortable process to basically change everything about your life. And eventually about you, because you're going to change when you change your life. And that's a big commitment. That's a very big commitment. Okay, that's a big commitment. Okay. And the question is, how do you actually go about making those changes? And I'm old at this point. I was so much younger and full of life when I started this YouTube channel. And I think one of the things I would say is that it's a constant grind, because I've been fighting these demons since I was at least 20, probably even earlier. But especially when you turn 20, you really start thinking about these things. 25 now, and I still struggle with all of it, every last thing. And so I really run the risk of becoming a nobody, which is very terrifying in so many different ways. And despite that fear, despite that fear that I have, it still doesn't always act as an efficient motivator for me to change my life. And the thing about changing your life is that you need a why. You need a why for the how. So what's your why going to be? Because obviously that external motivation of not being nobody isn't really good enough, because it's so far in the future. It's not going to really impact your behavior now, So, what do you do about that? Is that what discipline is? Is discipline that? Is discipline doing the hard thing for no reason? Maybe it is. I don't know. It's never for no reason, obviously, but that's how you perceive it, because there is no gratification, no dopamine release, no anything. It's just nothing. That's kind of what I'm saying, is that you have to do things that feel like nothing, that you get nothing out of. And I mean nothing, like no dopamine, no escapism, no anything, no instant results. You have to do those things. And that can be hard, because when I smoke weed and I get high, I feel good. When I don't smoke weed and I go to the gym, I feel less good. And that's not even a good example, because going to the gym feels good sometimes. A better example would be like studying if you're in school. So like, instead of smoking weed, why don't you study? Why don't you? Because it's boring. Because there's no fruit with studying. It's just what it is. But with weed, I have the fruit of getting high. Does any of this make sense? So anyway, I guess the best way of going about it would be to just, what has worked for me? Let me end off on that. What has worked for me in the past? And finding a reason to give up something is a good first step. Because if you're like me, you have an addictive personality, you probably abuse many different things for your enjoyment. The best thing you can do is find a reason not to do those things. And I think the rest because a lot of things open up for you when you do that. If you stop going on YouTube and get off social media and stop drinking and smoking and stop partying and all this other stuff, stop sleeping in, whatever. Do these things, and you're sort of taking a page from your book that has all these words in it, and you're erasing all those words, you're scrubbing them off, and now you have a blank page in which to write something else. So, but I don't really know what comes first, the chicken or the egg. It kind of depends on you. Maybe you start doing the boring stuff, and then the the quote unquote interesting stuff that you usually do will kind of fall to the wayside, or maybe you have to stop doing the quote unquote interesting stuff that you do before you can start doing the boring stuff. I'm not really sure. But when I figure it out, I'll tell you. And it might be as simple as making some kind of pact, some kind of vow, reading some kind of book that sort of changes your perspective. I don't know. But the one thing you definitely can't do is lose consciousness and forget that an interesting life leads to a boring person. A life full of entertainment leads to a boring personality. But a life of boredom and a life of less dopamine leads to a more interesting person. And you want to be an interesting person because you don't want to be nobody. I can assure you that. You probably don't want to be nobody. So don't ever forget that, because if you do, 10 years will pass and you won't even recognize who you are.